Michael Avery, sponsored by Alex Forbes, for insight, advice, and impact.
Well, for the last couple of years, artificial intelligence has been sold like a miracle cure. Faster decisions, fewer people, infinite scale. But somewhere between the demo and the deployment, something's changed a little bit. AI stopped being something that's really shiny, the nice new tech science project, and it started signing emails. It started approving payments and touching customer data. And I think that's where procurement and decision-making really starts to intervene and intertwine at an uncomfortable level, given that much of the AI is still a black box and explainability is still very, very difficult to do. So my next guest penned an article on how we need to start thinking about governance and procurement in the AI space. He's someone who's very familiar to classic business listeners. Johan Steyn, founder of AIforbusiness.net, one of the clearest voices arguing that AI buying has certainly grown up. Johan, welcome and all the best.
And same to you, Michael. Good to hear from you.
Are we really seeing AI being used in procurement decisions at the moment?
Sadly not, and that's why I wrote that article. I mean, AI is no longer, as you said in the intro, kind of a side issue. Let's play around with the tools. It's such a big part of our business for many, especially at the large corporates, automated decisioning, looking at data, predicting the future, that we need procurement and compliance very involved, because a big part of how we do business is now reliant on AI, on the platforms and our vendors, which poses a huge risk. And that's why I say in that article, we really need a lot more control in how we procure these platforms and how we manage them.
Because once AI moves from experimentation into production, it stops being a toy and it starts being infrastructure. And I think for years we tolerated shadow IT, cloud tools quietly embedded by teams moving faster than our governance could really keep up with. I think AI has supercharged that behavior to some extent. Does it work versus can we control it seems to be the big debate. And it feels like a philosophical shift as much as a commercial one. And you argue that procurement has moved from asking does it work to can we control it. Why is that such a fundamental change in how AI is being judged?
Absolutely. Look, so as I said, it controls our business. A lot of these platforms, whether it's cloud platforms or AI and automation platforms. So here are some of the questions. What if the cloud platform stops working? What if we stop paying? What if the vendor closes down or there's a dispute? It has a radical impact on a lot of large corporates and their business. But the other thing, Michael, is where does the data reside? Do we still harvest the data ethically and legally as a business, or do we just outsource it to the vendor and hope for the best? And the other big thing is IP transfer. You know, a lot of these big consulting firms, I've worked for many of them, they have these so-called land and expand strategies. So let's get the deal and stay there forever. No IP transfer, no training. And I often say, and the vendors I work with hate this, a great engagement is when I'm done, you can go on without me.
Yeah.
And then hopefully there will be a next deal for me. But I think what I've seen, that's why I wrote the article, a lot of big corporates, well, in South Africa that I deal with, are really putting a big part of their business and the risk in the hands of these platforms. And I don't think they're aware of it. And that's why I'm advocating that procurement and compliance should be very much involved, not to stifle innovation, but to make sure that the business is protected, because every man and his dog wants to chat GPT and get new platforms and stuff. I think the risk of if it goes wrong is so much higher than a lot of business leaders realize.
So if we start with that premise that procurement teams haven't been that alive to some of that lock-in risk and some of the shift in the power dynamics that are happening here, how should they be responding? I mean, it should change the contract negotiations materially. How can the buyers push back on these things?
I think a lot of the buying or the procurement teams are not trained or enabled. A lot of them, in my experience, even when I worked for some of our big banks, it's very transactional. Let's do an RFP. Let's just make sure that the BEE levels and the pricing levels are okay. And then according to the weightings we've assigned, we assign the contract to a specific vendor. But it's almost like there wasn't really much thinking involved. You just had to tick the boxes. But I'm advocating for procurement and compliance teams to really be the leaders in this space. Not to, again, stifle innovation, but to help the business owners to make the right decisions. I still think we have, for lack of a better term, sparkly eyes when it comes to AI and automation. New vendor pitches up, they promise the world, they just do it. The procurement team and the compliance team should be there to protect the business and to complement the decision makers who want this product. It should help with innovation, but in a way that really protects that business. Even if we say no, there should be a good reason to say no. So, Michael, I think procurement teams, again, who have been very transactional and administrative based, what I'm saying through that article is they need a lot of upskilling. They play a vital role in this AI world.
They certainly do. But if you're maybe a CIO or a CFO or even a procurement head listening at the moment, what's that first question you should ask before signing an AI contract? They're the evidence that you should insist on, not policy documents, but controls that you can actually verify to give you confidence that you're not locked in, that you're not buying something that is going to structurally enjoin you to paying rents to a vendor for life.
Yes, and that lock-in is a big conversation. If a big part of our business is locked in with this vendor, running automation and AI, and then we are really almost beholden to them. What if they change their pricing structure? What if they close down? What if they are being bought over by another entity? We've got so little control. So there's a framework that I've built for my clients. There are some very good frameworks available online, and a lot of the consulting firms has it as well. But there's a lot of pushback needed, which doesn't make procurement teams popular. But again, do we own the IP? What's happening with the data? And Michael, I think a big thing is if things go wrong, who is responsible? If an automated decisioning system, whether it's credit applications or others, make a decision maybe because of biased data, whether it's gender, ethnicity, especially in us as a developing country, as South Africa, who pays for those damages? And I think we're going to see more and more regulation. Even though in South Africa we still, and it pains me, don't have AI regulation yet, I always say to business leaders, look at the EU AI Act, look at explainable AI, look at mandatory ethical AI training. But when the paw hits the fan, I promise you it's not going to be the vendor, it's going to be you as a business. So I think that training and empowerment of the procurement and the compliance team is exceptionally important. They also need senior leadership support because, like you said, when the CIO, the CTO pushes back, they need the right to say no. You're not complying to our checklist. We're here to protect and help you. We can no longer be cowboys. It's almost like saying I'm putting in fuel into my car and we're just going to drive wherever we want to go, but no one checks whether the car's been serviced or anything like that. It's a lot more serious than I think a lot of business leaders think at the moment, Michael.
And I think the Reserve Bank actually came out last year with its flavor of the year as third-party risk. And you could see they're starting to see the risk here. Banks being reliant and beholden to hyperscalers that effectively, if they change their terms of service, could shut down key financial plumbing. Could you imagine? And with the way the Donroe doctrine is going in the US and where South Africa sits in terms of our relationship with the US, these do become material risks. So, Johan Steyn, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. Sadly, we've run out of time. But thank you. A great article, very timely, talking about where governance really should become part of the deal. And if there's no governance, no deal. Johan Steyn, founder of AIforbusiness.net, here on Classic Business.
Michael Avery, sponsored by Alex Forbes for insight, advice, and impact.